Sometimes God doesn't explain the exit. He doesn't always offer a warning, a goodbye, or a chance to retaliate. He just removes you quietly, instantly, strategically, because the pain inflicted on you in that place was not a mistake. It was a lesson. But the place, the people, the atmosphere, that was no longer your assignment. That was the testing ground. And once the test was over, God didn't need your permission to relocate you. He moved you to preserve the purpose He hid inside you. You see, there are moments when God will allow you to be mishandled, misunderstood, and even mocked. Not because He delights in your suffering, but because He is revealing what cannot go with you into destiny. The betrayal you faced wasn't random. The silence you endured wasn't unnoticed. The injustice was not overlooked by heaven. God saw it all. And while they were busy laughing, scheming, twisting truth into poison, God was observing how you responded, not to bless them, but to elevate you. There are some environments that are toxic to vision, some people whose access to you is a threat to your calling. So instead of exposing you to more abuse, God removed you so they could feel what they refused to understand while you were still standing there. He didn't remove you to punish them. He removed you to reveal them. Because as long as you stayed in the equation, they never had to confront the weight of their own cruelty. Your presence gave them the luxury of comfort. But your absence that became the echo of every wrong word, every dagger in the back, every attempt to reduce your worth. When God removes you, it is surgical. It is precise. He doesn't just extract you from the physical space. He severs emotional ties, cuts spiritual leeches, closes invisible wounds, and once you are removed, their room grows colder. Not because of your vengeance, but because of your value. They are not missing you. They are feeling the consequences, treating favor like it was disposable. You were not ordinary. You were a carrier of peace, a vessel of light, a stabilizer sent by heaven, and they mishandled that. God doesn't always clap back. He allows consequence to preach. And oh, how loudly silence speaks. You don't need to return. You don't need to explain. You don't need to prove who you were. Time and truth are already doing the talking. And the very ones who once called you too much, who rolled their eyes at your heart, who fed off your loyalty while planting seeds of slander, they are now battling with a God they didn't even know was watching, because He was. He heard the prayers you whispered through tears. He saw the nights you stayed when everything in you said, walk away. He knew the pain of being loyal to those who counted you as disposable. And He said, enough. They won't get it until you're gone. So He moved you not out of anger, but out of mercy. Mercy for your future. Mercy for your mental peace. Mercy for the anointing on your life that was being drained in a place too small for your spirit. And now they sit in the very atmosphere they poisoned alone with the echoes of their choices. Their words don't land the same anymore. Their laughter rings hollow. The manipulation loses its effect because the one who absorbed it all is no longer there. And for the first time, they are forced to face the version of themselves they tried to bury by blaming you. You were never the problem. You were the cover, the protector, the prayer, the grace they mistook for weakness. God is why God allows you to be misunderstood, not punishing them through you. He's teaching them through your absence. Because sometimes the most powerful move God can make is not vengeance, but removal. And when He removes you, it is a holy statement. You mattered more than they ever knew, and now they know. There are seasons when the hand of God moves so quietly, so discreetly, that it almost feels like a disappearance rather than a deliverance. You don't always get a warning, a farewell, or even a reason. One day you just find yourself outside the very place you once prayed to remain in. People may think you walked away, they might believe you gave up, but the truth is heaven orchestrated a shift that the earth could never fully explain. When God removes you, it is never a random detour. It is a divine reordering of your path. It's not abandonment. It's not rejection. It is alignment. He sees what you cannot see. He hears the whispers behind doors you never knew existed. He knows the intentions of hearts, even when faces are smiling, and while you're busy praying for clarity, God is already positioning you for protection. There are places you loved, people you trusted, environments you gave your all to. But God saw something deeper. He saw how the very soil you were planting seeds into was being poisoned behind your back. He saw the weariness in your soul, the silent heaviness you carried while pretending to be strong, and so he did not wait for you to find the strength to leave. He removed you before the damage could become irreversible. His removals are not impulsive. They are precise. He doesn't pull you away to humiliate you. He pulls you away to preserve the sacred assignment wrapped within your being. Sometimes we confuse stillness for stagnation, but in God's design, stillness is often where strategy begins. When He separates you, it may feel like loss, but it is actually the beginning of elevation, because God will never leave a soul He crafted for greatness to be buried under the weight of constant dishonor and spiritual pollution. He will always intervene when your atmosphere becomes incompatible with your calling. To those looking from the outside, it might seem like you were pushed out. To those who never truly understood your value, it may appear like you were dismissed. But in reality, you were extracted like a rare diamond from a place that no longer knew how to handle your worth. And while you may grieve what was familiar, while you may miss the comfort of what you once knew, deep down there is a divine peace that begins to whisper, this was necessary. This was God. This was love disguised as removal. The beauty of God's movement is that it often goes unnoticed by those who weren't meant to witness it. The same ones who misjudged you won't understand the favor protecting you. The same voices that try to label your exit as weakness will eventually fall silent when they realize the absence of your presence disrupted the atmosphere more than they expected. What they thought was an ending was really your beginning. They didn't realize that the silence that followed your removal would be louder than any word you could have spoken. God didn't need you to make a statement. Your absence would say it all. Every divine removal is part of a blueprint far greater than the pain it leaves behind. God never relocates without reason. He never shifts without strategy. He never allows you to be pulled away from one place without preparing the next. And while you may not see the full picture now, there is a higher wisdom guiding every step. One day you'll look back and realize the moment that broke your routine actually saved your spirit. The day you felt pulled away was the day heaven made room for something greater. You were not removed to be forgotten. You were removed to be remembered in the right place, not to wander, but to be planted in richer soil, not to lose yourself, but to find what they tried to make you forget. When God removes you, it's because He's already seen the battles ahead and decided your purpose is too precious to be wasted in enemy territory. So trust the silence. Trust the shift. Trust the sacred distance, the people who took you for granted, that kept you from destruction. Because what felt like rejection was really divine redirection, written in the language of love only the Spirit can understand. Some people never recognize the value of what they have until it's no longer standing quietly beside them. While they took your presence for granted, mistaking it for something ordinary, God was fully aware of the extraordinary grace you carried. You weren't just another person in the room. You were the calm in their chaos, the shield in their storm, the unseen force holding fragile things together. But they didn't see that because peace never announces itself. It just operates consistently and humbly until its absence becomes deafening. You were the one who listened when they didn't even have the words to speak. You were the one who stayed when others left. You were the steady heart in an unstable atmosphere. And yet they mistook your loyalty for dependence, your kindness for weakness, your silence for insignificance. But you were never insignificant. You were the anchor, the quiet protector, the soul that walked in with light and softened spaces hardened by pride, bitterness, and confusion. And the day God removed you, the entire dynamic began to shift. Not because you made noise, but because you took your peace with you. You were not just present, you were carrying a divine weight they didn't even comprehend. Your prayers were covering them when they didn't know danger was near. Your wisdom was keeping them from falling deeper into their own mess. Your presence alone brought a spiritual clarity they had long stopped valuing. But instead of honoring you, they tolerated you. Instead of protecting your spirit, they drained it. And what they didn't realize is that God does not allow his vessels to be used indefinitely. He permits seasons, but when misuse becomes a pattern, he calls his presence back, sometimes by removing the one he sent to bless them. You didn't need applause to operate in your role. You didn't need recognition to pour your heart out, but even silent servants grow weary. And God, in his deep compassion for you, saw how much of yourself you were sacrificing in a place that treated your peace like background noise. They didn't see the cost of your endurance. They didn't understand the depth of what you were carrying. And so when you were taken out of that space, the same ones who felt so secure in your presence were forced to face the emptiness they created. Now they feel the difference. The lightness in the air is gone. The atmosphere no longer feels grounded. Their conversations echo differently. Their actions don't land the same. And the comfort they once had is slipping. That's because you weren't just a person. You were a covering. You were carrying spiritual gravity. You were the blessing they never knew how to honor. And now what they thought they could live without has become the very thing they quietly crave. It's not your voice they miss most. It's the peace that wrapped around them when you walked into the room. It's not your efforts they're replaying. It's the quiet strength you showed when everything around you was in disarray. Because some people don't miss you for who you were to them. They miss what they became when you were around. And once God removed you, not only did they lose access to your presence, they lost access to the protection your spirit brought. God doesn't remove someone like you without intention. He knows the atmosphere you cultivate. He understands the sacredness you carry, and he will not allow that to be wasted. So while they may now be reflecting, realizing, regretting, God is restoring, reviving, and repositioning you in a space where your presence will be honored, not drained, because you were never just another face in the crowd. You were a divine deposit, and where you go next will finally match the depth of who you've always been. Betrayal rarely comes from enemies. It wears familiar faces, speaks with voices you once trusted, and hides behind smiles that used to bring comfort. It enters quietly, often dressed in friendship, wrapped in shared laughter, and cloaked in what feels like loyalty. But when God allowed the betrayal you never expected, it wasn't to destroy you. It was to reveal who was never divine protection in disguise truly for you. Because there are some lessons your heart would have never learned through comfort. It took the wound to unveil the truth. It took the sharpness of betrayal to expose the shallow depth of their loyalty. You didn't see it coming because your heart was sincere. You gave with both hands open, loved with no calculation, and stood with people who were only ever leaning on you to build themselves up. And while you were covering them in grace, they were plotting behind your back. But God was watching, not in silence, not in absence, but in wisdom. He allowed the mask to stay on just long enough for you to understand who couldn't go with you to the next level. Because not everyone who starts with you is meant to finish with you. And not every hand you held was meant to walk beside your destiny. Sometimes God lets you stay in spaces where loyalty is nothing more than convenience. Just long enough for your spirit to grow the discernment it once lacked. It wasn't about revenge, it was about clarity. You needed to see who they really were, not who you hoped they could become. And so the betrayal you didn't deserve became the revelation you didn't know you needed. The deception became the doorway to your awakening. They never thought you'd figure it out. They believed your heart would keep you blind. But God has a way of pulling back the curtain at the perfect time. One by one, the conversations got exposed. One by one, the intentions became obvious. And while it hurt, while it shook the core of your trust, it also set you free. Because now you know. Now you've seen it. Now your heart has the evidence to walk away without guilt, without confusion, and without the weight of holding on to what was never real. Betrayal didn't make you bitter. It made you wiser. It sharpened your vision. It deepened your prayer life. It taught you how to sit in silence and still stand strong. You learned how to be alone without being broken. You discovered how much strength God placed inside of you. And the very thing they thought would leave you shattered actually birthed a version of you they can no longer touch. They tried to break your spirit, but God used their betrayal to reinforce it. You weren't betrayed because you were weak. You were betrayed because they saw something in you they didn't have. They saw light and they couldn't handle it. They saw favor and it convicted them. So instead of growing with you, they chose to tear at you. But in doing so, they only exposed their own insecurity. Their actions weren't a reflection of your worth. They were a reflection of their fear, their jealousy, their inability to be what you were without pretending. God let it all unfold so you could walk away with truth. And truth, no matter how painful, is always a gift. You may not have chosen the betrayal, but you were chosen through it. And the separation that followed was not a punishment. It was a promotion. Because God doesn't allow deep wounds without planting deeper roots. And now you're wiser, stronger, clearer. You don't just see people, you discern them. And that discernment is part of the armor that will protect your next season. The betrayal wasn't the end, it was the unveiling. The moment where what was hidden had to come to light, so what is destined could finally rise. Some people will never grasp the weight of their actions while you're still standing there absorbing it. As long as you remain in the room, they don't have to face the echo of their words, the sting of their silence, or the consequences of their behavior. Your presence cushions the blow of their choices. They feel safe, not because they are innocent, but because you absorb the tension. You become the shield between them and the reality of what they've done. But when God removes you, He removes that shield. And suddenly they are forced to sit with what they sowed. They never truly considered how their words pierced. They never paused to feel the chill of their absence when they withdrew emotionally. What your absence is teaching them. They never thought twice when they left you to carry burdens they helped create. Because you were always there, steady, loyal, enduring, and your very consistency became the excuse for their carelessness. They grew comfortable knowing you wouldn't walk away. They banked on your compassion, mistaking your endurance for eternal availability. But when God decided that enough was enough and your season in that place ended, their comfort shattered. The absence you left behind wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. It altered the atmosphere. It silenced their assumptions. It interrupted the cycle. Suddenly, the weight of their choices wasn't being absorbed by your patience. It came crashing down on them. The room didn't sound the same. Their routine didn't feel right. The peace they mistook as normal was missing because you were the one bringing it. You were the one creating the calm. You were the one maintaining a connection they never appreciated until it broke. God didn't remove you to harm them. He removed you so they could finally feel what they refused to acknowledge. You were not meant to be the permanent landing ground for people's emotional negligence. And so He let them sit in their own echoes. Let them hear the replay of every careless word. Let them walk through the emptiness they created when they undervalued presence, when they dismissed honesty, when they wounded without reflection. He didn't remove you as a punishment to them. He removed you as a healing for you. But the ripple effect of that healing, it exposed their hollow. You see, some people will only grow when forced to look at themselves without you blocking the mirror. You were the deflection, the distraction, the soft place to land after their sharp choices. But once you left, the mirror turned toward them. And for the first time, they had to face who they were when no one else was there to absorb it. That moment of truth is painful but necessary, because people don't transform when everything is easy. They transform when everything they avoided starts staring back at them. The echo of your absence teaches more than your presence ever could. When you were there, they ignored the cost of their actions. But now they feel the weight. The conversations are quieter. The celebrations are duller. The atmosphere is heavier because they didn't just lose a person. They lost the light, the clarity, the spiritual covering you carried. And there is no replacement for that. They'll try to fill it, try to numb it, try to replace it. But the truth is, what left was irreplaceable. God knew they wouldn't feel it while you stayed. He knew they would continue to take without reflection, speak without care, wound without pause. So he removed you so they could feel, truly feel the absence of what they thought they could do without. And now what once seemed insignificant has become the very thing they miss in silence. Not because they suddenly changed, but because the presence they misused is now the very peace they cannot find again. There is a depth of language that silence speaks, one that words can never fully articulate. Sometimes God doesn't shout, he simply removes. And in that sacred removal, a message is released far louder than any confrontation. When you were present, they didn't hear it. When you were still giving, still showing up, still trying to hold peace together, they were deaf to the damage they caused. But when God pulled you back, not out of anger but wisdom, he let your absence preach a sermon that no voice could ever deliver. While you were there, your grace covered them. Your patience made room for their shortcomings. Your strength carried the tension that they refused to address, but they never noticed it because the weight you carried was invisible to those who never had to lift it. Your consistency became background noise. Your forgiveness became routine, and the sacred part of your presence became so familiar that they forgot it was even a gift. So God decided to teach through absence, not through retaliation, not through revenge, just through distance. The silence left behind became a mirror.